Well, it's Wednesday, which means it's time for Prime Minister's Questions. That's the weekly political showdown in the UK's House of Commons. Today, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer faces off against the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, tackling the biggest issues of the week, including the war in Gaza and the New Deal between the UK and the EU. Expect tough questions, fiery exchanges, and no shortage of political drama. Let's go live to Westminster for all the action.
Lost control of the borders. We're bringing forward legislation to give law enforcement the greatest possible powers. What are they doing? They're voting against it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the economy is showing signs of improving, many pensioners are still impacted by the cost of living crisis. People in Luton who have worked hard all their lives, seeing their precious savings slip away. So can the Prime Minister tell us what measures he will take to help struggling pensioners in towns like mine?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we all know the economy was left in an absolute mess by the Tories. We had to stabilise the economy with tough decisions, but the right decisions. Because of those decisions, the economy is beginning to improve. Those growth figures last year, the highest growth in the G7, interest rate cuts, 4 in a row, 3 trade deals. But I recognise that people are still feeling the pressure of the cost of living crisis, including pensioners. And as the economy improves, we want to make sure people feel those improvements in their days as their lives go forward. And that is why we want to ensure that as we go forward, more pensioners are eligible for winter fuel payment. As you would expect, Mr. Speaker, we will only make decisions we can afford. That is why we will look at that as part of a fiscal event.
Leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch.
Mr. Speaker, it's extraordinary listening to that last answer from the Prime Minister. Inflation was 2% when Conservatives left office. 2%. It's now nearly double that. When will he recognise that it's Labour's budget driving up inflation?
I think what she forgot to say was over 11% on their watch. And she didn't say a word. I am confident those numbers will come down, Mr. Speaker. The Bank of England is confident those numbers will come down. That's why we've seen 4 interest rates in a row. But I noticed she can't resist grabbing any opportunity to talk the country down. She doesn't mention the growth figures, the interest rate figures, record investment, wages up more than prices, 200,000 jobs created, 4 trade deals. And the reason, Mr. Speaker, they haven't learned, they haven't changed, and as George Osborne said, she doesn't have a credible economic plan.
Mr. Speaker, this is laughable from the Prime Minister. He knows that inflation was brought down by us to 2%, bang on target. We were reacting to a war in Ukraine that brought inflation up all over Europe. While he is doing trade deals with countries like the US and India, their inflation is going down. It's going up here. Why? The ONS says the inflation figures are driven by significant increases in household bills. We warned him repeatedly that this is exactly what would happen, what his policies would do. We called it Awful April. The Prime Minister came into office saying that he would tackle the cost of living crisis. He has failed. He hasn't got a clue, has he?
Mr. Speaker, she talks of their record, the disastrous Liz Truss mini budget. Inflation through the roof. They left a £22 billion black hole. Living standards at an all-time low. Energy prices through the roof. Mortgages through the roof. And Mr. Speaker, we're taking measures to bring prices down. That EU deal will bring prices down. That's why supermarkets welcomed it. What did she do? She opposes measures to bring prices down.
Mr. Speaker, he needs to stop whining about what the last government did and look at what he is doing. He is the Prime Minister. Look at the numbers this morning. As if inflation figures weren't bad enough, we've also learned that the Deputy Prime Minister is on manoeuvres. He's lost control of the economy. He's lost control of his cabinet. She's sitting there staring at me. She knew exactly what she was doing when she briefed that into the papers. She is demanding, Mr. Speaker, 8 new tax rises, as if we haven't suffered enough. People out there are struggling. Businesses are struggling. People are losing their jobs. We cannot have more tax rises. Will the Prime Minister rule out new tax rises this year?
Mr. Speaker, she's not learned or changed. They lost the election because their appalling record on the NHS, on health, on prisons, you name it. And now she accuses everyone of whining about the impact that had on the country. It had a huge impact on working people across the country, and they're absolutely right to complain about it. She wants to talk about the Deputy Prime Minister. The Deputy Prime Minister, working with the Chancellor, building 1.5 million new homes, reforming our planning system, putting £7 billion into our economy, and bringing forward an employment rights bill, which is the single biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation.
That's desperate stuff. The whole House would have heard the Prime Minister refuse to rule out new tax rises. The whole House heard it, he didn't rule it out. That his cabinet is open warfare. The Deputy Prime Minister clearly calling the shots. What is it that we've learned? We're heading for new tax rises. We know inflation is up. It's just more and more bad news from a Prime Minister who has lost control. So we heard his earlier answer, Mr. Speaker. We heard his earlier answer on winter fuel. Let's try and get some more information. I'm going to ask him a simple question. It only requires one word, yes or no. Is he planning to U-turn on winter fuel cuts?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I made clear in my earlier answer that as the economy improves, we want to take measures that will impact on people's lives, and therefore we will look at the threshold, but that will have to be part of a fiscal event. But Mr. Speaker, they lost control of every element of the economy, of prisons, the borders, the NHS, you name it. And now she's lost control of her party. They are sliding into oblivion. They will have to trade on their past, Mr. Speaker, because that's all they've got.
Speaker, I made it really easy for the Prime Minister. Just a simple question, yes or no, and he could not answer. I wonder how the public feel about a man who can't give a straight answer to a simple question. And you look at all of them behind him, all of them cheering, when this inevitable U-turn on winter fuel comes, and it will, from a desperate Prime Minister, what will he say to the 348 MPs who went over the top and voted for the winter fuel cut last September? Just like the British public, how can any of them ever trust him again?
Mr. Speaker, it's only because of the measures we've taken that the economy is improving. Growth at the highest rate since in the G7. 4 interest rate cuts, 3 trade deals because countries want to trade with this country because of the decisions that we've made. All of those decisions opposed by the party opposite. They've learned absolutely nothing and they're going absolutely nowhere.
Mr. Speaker, this is a Prime Minister who says he's taking measures. The jobs tax is killing jobs. Inflation is up. Business confidence is down. Everyone is worried. He promised to cut bills, but today we see they are rising because of his policies. He promised not to raise taxes on working people, but his jobs tax means people are losing their jobs. Every week we come here with a new company that is saying they are shedding jobs. That's on his watch. He promised to protect pensioners, but his winter fuel cut has driven thousands into hardship. His MPs hate this. He can't see them, but they all look sick just hearing what it is he's going to do. So let's wait until... Oh yes, they're laughing. They're laughing. They're laughing.
I expect better from whips. And boys on at the back, I've got my eye on you. Heavy baby.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Sorry. Which one wants to leave first? If I hear it, where we are, they've got the first volunteer. Are you going to behave? Can we behave?
Mr. Speaker, they are laughing just as they laughed at the budget. Hands up who here wanted winter fuel cuts. Hands up. Not a single one of them. Not a single one of them. The fact of the matter is, this Prime Minister is destroying them. They need to look at what they are doing to the country. The truth is, we all know that it is this Prime Minister, this Labour government, and their policies that are shafting the country, isn't it?
Mr. Speaker, they look in pretty good form. To me, and there's lots of them. Mr. Speaker, she talks about business confidence. Yesterday I didn't have time to read out the list of all the businesses that have come out in support of our EU deal. Mr. Speaker, I don't have time today. It's a long list. I went immediately to Lidl and spoke to the staff in Lidl. They're delighted with the deal we put forward yesterday. Business like the work we're doing. It's giving them confidence in the EU deal. She's opposed to each and every measure.
Louise Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I recently visited Barrow Hill Primary School in my constituency of North East Derbyshire, a school in receipt of a new free breakfast club. The team there are doing a fantastic job, but challenges still remain. What more can we do as a government to support both them and local parents to give the children of Barrow Hill the start in life that they deserve?
Well, I thank my honourable friend. We are united by a shared focus on creating better life chances for our children. And I'm delighted to hear her constituents are already benefiting.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Now, Afia, listening to what was being said, there are so many concerns that were brought up, like the fact that pensioners, are impacted by the cost of living, how inflation has been, at its highest in a really long time, and the fact that Kemi actually asked the question to the PM if, he would rule out tax rises this year. What are your thoughts on, some of the answers that he gave to these questions?
Yes, some really fiery exchanges in the Commons this afternoon from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, and Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, to give her full title. Yeah, absolutely. Kemi Badenoch putting forward that point there that when the Conservatives left power, inflation was at 2%, now it's double that. She is accusing the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, of failing to tackle the cost of living crisis. She also asked him twice if he was going to rule out more tax rises, something that he actually did not answer. Coming to your point that you made there about the cost of living crisis and also winter fuel payments for pensioners, which has been a highly controversial issue. Previously, pensioners across the board had been given an uplift of money from the government to be able to pay for fuel throughout the winter through the cost of living crisis. This is something that the Labour Party, that now they're in government, have reduced the amount of pensioners that are entitled to that payment. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, asked Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, if this is something that he's willing to review. He has said that as the economy improves, that's something that perhaps they will review during a fiscal event later on in the year. So the cost of living crisis is still something that is really affecting the United Kingdom and affecting the citizens, and of course coming up in Parliament today.
All right, now let's also have your thoughts on the EU-UK deal, that actually came to play within the week. Do you think that it is beneficial?
Well, it's about a reset, actually, isn't it? This deal between the United Kingdom and the European Union is about a political and a strategic reset in relationships between the UK and the EU. Sir Keir Starmer is determined to sell it as being beneficial to the UK. He said he didn't have time to read out the number of businesses that were very positive about this new deal. And the deal is going to make it easier to trade between the United Kingdom and the UK post-Brexit. Between the United Kingdom and the EU post-Brexit. We're going to be able to sell things in the EU that easier than we can before, things like burgers and sausages. When it comes to fishing, there is some sticking points there. But I think anything that makes it easier for us to trade with our nearest neighbours, which is the European Union, has got to be a positive for the United Kingdom. And also in this time where you have higher tariffs from the United States, something that perhaps we weren't anticipating and didn't have in play, this time last year. With where we need to trade and where we need to build relationships has changed. Yes, we've done a deal with the United States and we've done a deal with India and now with the EU, but trading is different. We're in a different geopolitical sphere than we have been ever before. And improving our relationships with the EU is going to be great for the economy in the United Kingdom and hopefully get us out of this cost of living crisis, which is still a hangover from our previous Conservative government.
Well, thank you so much, Afia, for that update. Now let's turn our attention back to West Africa, Nigeria, where the Central Results Delivery and Coordination Unit is finalizing a new round of ministerial performance scorecards as President Bola Tinubu approaches his second anniversary in office. The assessment, covering the first quarter of 2025, comes as the administration reaches its midterm on May 29th. The unit, operating under the presidency, has been reviewing reports submitted by various ministries, verifying achievements against performance bonds signed during the October 2023 cabinet retreat. Ministries were required to upload documentation of key projects and policy outcomes to a secure portal last month. The verification process, led by Hadiza Bala Usman, is reportedly placing pressure on underperforming ministries as the government intensifies its focus on accountability and delivery of its reform agenda. Now, the proposals to amend the Act of four regional development commissions in Nigeria in a bid to increase the number of their directorates have passed the third reading in the House of Representatives. Also, the proposed 2025 budget of over 1.7 trillion naira of the Federal Capital Territory scaled the second reading. Now, these developments were among the highlights at the House of Representatives plenary Tuesday in Abuja. Our correspondent, Idung Joseph, reports.
Examine and approve the votes and proceedings of Thursday, 15th May 2025.
The day's plenary resumed with the laying of petitions, raising of important motions of urgent national importance, and the introduction of 12 proposed legislations targeting reforms in the agriculture, education, health, and mining sectors.
And her petition is against the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Need to save the people of Bajibo community in Kam and local government area of Kwara State from further boot Michelle.
As part of its contribution to raising awareness about the burden of cardiovascular diseases like hypertension and others, the House suspended its rules to admit non-parliamentarians into the chamber.
I have these prayers on behalf of the team. Number one, dedicated budget line for hypertension and non-communicable diseases, to recommit to meeting the 15% Abuja declaration target for health sector funding. We clear NCD targets.
This was followed by the reading and passage of 9 proposed legislations, including amendments to the North-East, North-Central, South-South, South-West, and South-East Development Commissions, aimed at increasing the number of their directorates. Also included were bills for the establishment of an agricultural research college, technical, vocational, and entrepreneur institutes in Nasarawa, Lagos, and Kano states.
A bill for an act to amend the North Central Development Commission Act 2025 and for related matters, third reading. A bill for an act to amend the South-South Development Commission Act 2025 and for related matters, third reading.
In addition to the new legislations, the House also passed for the second reading over 1.7 trillion naira 2025 budget proposal of the Federal Capital Territory Administration, a bill to guarantee certain rights for older persons, and another to establish a national eye center.
Statutory Revenue Fund of the Federal Capital Territory Administration account, the total sum of 1,783,823,708,392 naira only.
After considering motions on the need to revive Nigeria's textile industry and investigate the NNPC pension fund, the House resolved into the Committee of the Whole to consider reports from its Committee on Health Institutions and Health Services, expected to soon pass the third reading. In Abuja for News Central, Idung Joseph.
The Nigerian Senate, at the resumption of plenary on Tuesday, passed 2 important bills, one seeking to amend the National Assembly Pension Board Act and another to repeal and reenact the Proceeds of Crime Act. News Central's national correspondent, that's National Assembly correspondent, Sagir Ibrahim, brings us details from the day's sitting.
File into the Red Chamber for the first legislative day of the week. Papers in hand, voices primed for yet another deliberative session on institutional reform. First is a bill seeking to amend the National Assembly Service Pension Board Act with aims to revert to the contributory pension scheme, reconstitute board membership, provide a template for gratuity, and establish a dedicated fund. Senate leader Opeyemi Bamidele, who sponsored the bill, led the debate on its basic principles.
This amendment seeks to revert to the contributory pension scheme by ensuring a transparent and accountable system, to reintroduce gratuity payments that fairly compensate retirees for their service.
Other lawmakers also lent their voices to the bill.
It discourages corruption. Having a workable pension scheme. Once you know you have workable pension scheme, you are okay, it will help you by the time you leave. Why you go into corruption? You won't go into corruption.
One of the best way in order to encourage civil servants to contribute their widow's mite and their best while in service is to guarantee their future.
Next up, a controversial bill seeking to repeal the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act and enact the Proceeds of Crime 2025 to establish an agency to manage the disposal of properties suspected to have been derived from unlawful activities. Senator Idiat Adebule, who sponsored the bill, led the debate on its basic principles.
The bill advocates that the function of the relevant agencies should stop at investigation, prosecution, and recovery of assets and properties that are process of crime, while the effective holding, management, disposal of the recovery assets and properties should be discharged through an independent agency of government charged with responsibility under the Act.
Lawmakers who contributed to the bill expressed opposing views.
It's very, very unique. What it seeks to achieve is to separate all the anti-graft agencies from being the investigators, the prosecutors, and also being in custody of the proceeds of crime.
I don't think there is need for us to create an agency to manage recovery of proceeds. But the existing laws that we have should be strengthened. Where necessary, we should amend so that all proceeds of crime should not be retained by those agencies that maybe went to the courts and were able to get these either properties, monies, or what have you.
When put to a voice vote, the ayes had it, and the bill scaled second reading. It was then referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Human Rights to report back in 4 weeks. In Abuja for News Central, Sagir Ibrahim.
Well, News Central's National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim joins us to give an update. Sagir, tell us more about what the Senate wants to achieve with the Proceeds of Crime Amendment Bill.
On the news this afternoon. So the Proceeds of Crime Management Bill, simply put, seeks to establish an agency of government that will be charged with the responsibility of managing all items and proceeds, eliciting for or gotten from crime, proceeds of crime and illegal activities seized and forfeited by individuals who are guilty, prosecuted, or currently undergoing cases related to crime. So, as you know, initially, the act was passed in 2022, but that act that was passed enabled the law enforcement agencies responsible for the arrest and prosecution of individuals guilty or suspected to have committed illicit or crimes or maybe corruption allegations leveled against them and are under investigation. Now, when to some extent, it is determined and established that this is actually the case and these items are seized from them, there's usually not an agency that these items go to. So the government agencies or the law enforcement agencies are usually left with the responsibility of dealing with the clutter of these proceeds of crime. You know that it's not their responsibility to deal with that, as their own responsibility is the enforcement of law. So this bill is saying establish an agency where all of the proceeds of crime, be it seized items, cars, buildings, money or whatever the case may be goes to an independent agency charged with the responsibility of either managing them or disposing of, of them. That's basically the principles of the bill. And I give a simple example now. Currently, we saw the news in the headlines that the buildings forfeited, the estates forfeited by CBN governor, former CBN governor, former CBN governor Emefiele was, given to the Ministry of Housing to be auctioned off. The Ministry of Housing usually is not a ministry charged with the responsibility of auctioning properties. But in this case, if that agency exists that manages these assets that were seized, from individuals guilty of crime, it manages these assets and disposes of them.
Well, Sagir, your report also says that the bill generated mixed reactions on the floor. Can you tell us more about why some senators were not in support of the bill?
But it's simply emanated from the fact that some of them believe that the existing law enforcement agencies and their Establishment Act can be strengthened, in order to give them the right amount of legal cover to go ahead with this. At the moment, I believe some of these agencies have a department saddled with the responsibility of handling, managing, and disposing off of these forfeited assets. So they are saying those departments can be strengthened using either legal framework or using legislative powers and the law to give them the opportunity to perform this act robustly instead of establishing a standalone agency that means employment of more individuals, bureaucratic bottlenecks that might come with it, and all of these issues that would usually come with the establishment of an agency. So they feel that it's better for Nigeria to dodge this, the whole long process, and instead strengthen these agencies that they believe have the capacity, to handle the management of these forfeited assets.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sagir, for that update.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for staying with us. It's been over 30 years since oil exploration activities was halted in Ogoni land in Rivers State following gross pollution of the ecosystem. Now, in the struggle for environmental justice, some Ogoni elites, popularly known as the Ogoni 4 and Ogoni 9, were executed by the Nigerian government in 1995. While the Ogoni 9 are widely celebrated, some leaders from Gokana, the local government area where the Ogoni 4 were murdered, are calling for appropriate recognition for their heroes. Away from that, the trial of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has resumed at the Federal High Court in Abuja. Now, the court is expected to continue with the cross-examination of the second prosecution witness, who earlier presented evidence allegedly linking Kanu to the killing of former presidential aide Ahmed Gulak. Justice James Omotoshaw is presiding over the resumed session with both the prosecution and defense teams present. At the last sitting, the court admitted a medical report and death certificate as part of fresh evidence, while the defense challenged the credibility of a video obtained during Kanu's detention. News Central correspondent Joshua Marai joins us to give us an update on this. Hello, Joshua. Thank you for joining. Can you go ahead with the updates on the court proceedings that happened today?
Good afternoon to you, Dashen. Well, I am live at the Federal High Court where the trial of Nnamdi Kanu resumed today. Well, upon the commencement of proceedings today, the recurring issue of live streaming court proceedings as well as posting social media content on the court proceedings came up. And the lawyer representing Nnamdi Kanu, that's the lead counsel, that is the person of Kanu Agadu, brought to the notice of the court that a letter of petition was written by the prosecuting counsel, that is the person of Adegboyega Awomolo, complaining that there were series of misleading posts on social media, as well as live streaming and recordings of the court proceedings on social media, and complained that and urged the court to bar phones from being brought into the courtroom. Well, one particular person was fingered in this particular act, and that is the person of one of the legal representatives of Nnamdi Kanu. That is the person of Alo Ejimako. Ejimako was accused of doing same, and the court and the judge in this case, that is the person of Justice James Omotoshaw, actually told the court that the reason why they are expediting this trial to make it happen early is because of Nnamdi Kanu has been in the custody of the DSS for a while now, and it needs justice. The court, however, warned that anybody caught in the act may be disbarred from practicing law or may be punished severely. Well, moving on with the entire thing, they commenced cross-examination of the same witness. That is the person of Elias Triple B. That is the second prosecution witness in this case. And upon cross-examination by one of the counsel representing Nnamdi Kanu, that's the person of Paul Erukuru, he questioned the DSS if the activity can be influenced by government, politicians, or minister. And the witness replied saying that the entire activity is under the Office of the National Security Advisor and that they were not teleguided by the Minister of Justice or any politicians or any appointee of the government. They also went ahead to question them on their mode of intelligence gathering. And he told them that it is diverse because they were trained like the DSS is trained to gather intelligence from any part of the world, across social media, across phone lines or whatever, how you have it, where it is necessary. The court, however, adjourned the case for 22 of May, that is tomorrow, to continue to conclude cross-examination of the third prosecution witness.
All right. Well, we'll definitely reconnect with you tomorrow for more update on this particular matter. Thank you so much, Joshua, for your update. And now, the Oyo State Police Command has confirmed the tragic death of a 14-year-old boy, Kehinde Alade, during a joint traffic enforcement operation with OITMA on Tuesday, May 20th. According to the police, the boy was fatally shot during a high-speed chase after his father, who was allegedly driving against traffic, attempted to evade arrest along the Alakia-Adegbayi Road in Egbeda local government area. A police officer trying to stop the vehicle fired a shot aimed at the tires but accidentally struck the teenager in the back seat. He was rushed to UCH Hospital in Ibadan, where he was declared dead. The officer involved is now in custody, and the police commissioner has ordered a full investigation. It was a tragic situation at Gobirawa community in Dutse-Ma local government area of Katsina State as bandits launched a brutal attack on Saturday evening, leaving a trail of death and destruction. Unlike previous raids focused on looting, this assault took a different turn as homes were burned, innocent civilians were executed, and even animals were not spared. Experts suggest this marks a shift in tactics, a psychological warfare campaign aimed at terrorizing residents into submission. News Central TV visited the community, witnessing firsthand the aftermath of the brutality meted out on residents and the harrowing accounts from survivors. Our correspondent, Jamil Mabai, tells us more.
This is where Isuhu Baba's son took his last breath, murdered by bandits inside his own home. The bloodstains on the floor are all that remain of a teacher who dedicated his life to educating children. While many villages have surrendered to the control of bandits, the people of Gobirawa community have remained resilient, with local vigilantes fiercely defending their land. But after this latest attack, which claimed 30 lives, including 5 burned alive, fear has gripped the residents as many have now fled in droves, abandoning their homes in search of safety.
If you look at, there are so many of them leaving the village. They are fighting everything, taking out everything they have, moving to other areas, because they don't know when security is coming. And even after the attack, nobody came to them until the next day. And no government official, up to the time we went there, we saw nobody there. So if you look at what is happening It looks like the government have abandoned the area, have abandoned the people, and that is why they are fleeing. It's a message they are sending. They want to drive the people out of there. For what? That's the duty of the government to find out.
For years, they fought off bandits until last Saturday. The attack was not just brutal, it was a massacre.
Da suka rugo, wani suka shigo ta nan cikin zaure su kuma suka tsallako nan katanga. Shine suka shigo gidan suka same su. Da suka same su, to da suka kunna wuta. Shi wannan na farko zai haura na wurin. Suka ganshi, suka halbe shi a waje da mutuwa. Shi ma wannan na biyu ya haura na ya fara cin wuta. Shi ma nan suka da kashe shi. Nan ya da mutuwa. Shi kuma wannan na uku ga inda ya da mutuwa nan iya kawunsa zuwa nan wurin. Ya kone nan ya mutu da hannun bindiga. Su kuma annan wanda ke suka kone nan wurin suka ci suka cinye. Nan suka cinye gaba ɗaya ba abin da ke amfani a jikinsu. Sun kone kurmus a gidan Yahuza ne.
Yahuza's family escaped, but 3 boys ran into his room to hide. They burned them alive.
Kaga nan katiwa ce nan. Nan suka shiga suka boye. Amma gaba ɗaya sai da suka zo suka sa fetur suka toyo annan mutane.
12 lives lost, 12 families shattered. This wasn't just an attack. Experts say it's a psychological warfare.
They are trying to traumatize and so that nobody can stay any longer in those areas.
So this kind of aggressiveness, I've never seen it, never heard of it, or banditry. Now if it are something else, probably a religious war or tribal war or something like that, normally you see this kind of things. But when a bandit who's supposed to be looking for money, for how to just get what he wants and go back to the business, now embarks into this kind of thing, definitely there's something behind it. There's something behind this recent change in the tactics of the bandit.
For those that survive at Gobirawa community, survival has come at a cost, with homes reduced to a pile of ashes, livelihoods erased, the streets now empty, the scars will remain forever. In Katsina, reporting for News Central, I am Jamil Mabai.
Quite a sad incident. Away from that, a member of Nigeria's House of Representatives, Iduma Igariwey, has called for the cancellation of the 2025 UTME, citing what he termed a catastrophic institutional failure by JAMB. Igariwey, who leads the South-East Caucus, said the exam's integrity has been compromised after nearly 400,000 candidates were asked to retake the exam due to technical glitches and human error. He criticized the board's hasty rescheduling, which left many students stranded. The caucus is now demanding a full investigation, a nationwide cancellation of the UTME, and the resignation of JAMB Registrar Prof. Ishaq Oloyede. Oloyede has expressed regret, stating, being humans, they're not flawless. Away from Nigeria, much is at stake as President Cyril Ramaphosa meets with U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington later today. Speaking to reporters outside the South African embassy, President Ramaphosa said he intends to prioritize the interests of South Africa during his high-level talks with the U.S. leader. The meeting is expected to cover a wide range of pressing issues, including diplomatic and economic relations between the two nations. Now, key topics on the agenda include U.S. import tariffs that have negatively impacted South African exports, the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and growing international concern over disinformation, specifically false claims of genocide in South Africa. Joining us now from Gauteng is political analyst Asanda Ngosheng, here to unpack the potential impact of today's high-stakes meeting on the future of U.S.-South African relations, both economically and politically. Thank you so much for joining us, Asanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, let's start with the agenda. What, in your view, are likely to be the key issues on the table when both presidents meet?
Well, I think the first conversation is going to be about ensuring
that trade with South Africa and the US continues, particularly under AGOA, because South Africa benefits from being one of the countries that has the most diverse product mix that it sends to America as exports. And our agricultural sector in particular is a big beneficiary of this program, with 5 of the top products that are sent to America coming from the Western Cape province. And so I think trade is going to be the first conversation. And the second conversation, of course, is going to be about how this false narrative of a white genocide has been spread and legitimized by America when it accepted South African citizens as so-called refugees under the name of being persecuted and having land taken from them.
Okay. Now, looking at, the sometimes hardline diplomatic approach from the White House, especially from Trump, how do you anticipate that President Ramaphosa would respond, if President Trump adopts a more aggressive stance?
Well, I think, Cyril Ramaphosa is known to be a man who's a good negotiator. He was, of course, one of the architects of the South African Constitution, which was a very tough negotiation after South Africa gained its independence. And so he has the experience of negotiation, and he has some charm, which we see constantly, particularly when he's engaging with international leaders. And so I expect that he will be bringing some of that skill, and he will be using some of that negotiating skill and tactic in this tough situation and conversation, which is not too far from the conversations that would have needed to happen in South Africa after 1994 and Black people coming into power.
All right. Well, we apologize for, wrapping up the conversation here, but time is not on our side. But thank you so much, Asanda, for your time and speaking to us on this.
Thank you.
Of sports, tennis star Novak Djokovic says he is in no hurry to find a replacement for coach Andy Murray as he prepares for the French Open. The 24-time Grand Slam champion is working with former team member Dusan Vimic and analyst Boris Bosjakovic for now. Djokovic has struggled his season, losing his opening matches at both Monte Carlo and Madrid. He hasn't won a single match on clay this year. And despite these challenges, the 3-time French Open winner insists his motivation remains strong. He faces Hungarian Martin Fucsovics in his Geneva opener Wednesday. Leicester City could face a future points deduction after being charged with breaching the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules for the 2023-2024 season, during which they competed in the championship. Now, the club has been referred to an independent commission following a tribunal ruling that granted the Premier League jurisdiction over the matter. Leicester, recently relegated to the championship, may see any potential sanction applied in the 2025-2026 season. In addition to PSR breach, Leicester are accused of failing to submit financial accounts by 31st December 2024 and not cooperating fully with the Premier League's inquiries during investigation. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, here's another look at some of our major stories. We told you that President Tinubu is set to review Cabinet's midterm performance. We also told you that Nigerian lawmaker calls for cancellation of 2025 UTME. Finally, you heard that South Africa's President Ramaphosa is set to meet President Trump in Washington today. Remember, you may send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'm Darshan Usman.